it looks like somebody's dropped a bomb on the White House. The East Wing is being torn down as Donald Trump attempts to build some sort of gilded, I was about to say bingo hall, ballroom, and attach it to the White House. Many people asking if he's even got the authority to do it. Not that it would worry him. Well, joining you now is Erol Morkoc, I should say, Republican strategist and spokesperson for Republicans Overseas UK. Erol, good to have you with me again. So Trump then is knocking hell out of the East Wing of the White House for a project which has no planning permission. Does that sum up the man? Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I think Donald Trump is a builder, so I suppose in some ways this is Donald Trump's forte. He certainly did have the authority as far as his lawyers looked at it, which was the White House lawyers, to do the construction. There is some question on the demolition, though, what the authority there is on demolition. Regardless, though, are you unhappy with the fact that the country is getting a new ballroom, or what is the negative?
Well, I mean, frankly, I couldn't care either way. I mean, I'm delighted if it means that subsequent presidents can entertain people in an elegant way, and that might give the United States some sort of diplomatic leverage. But I just find it very odd that you're allowed to demolish a huge amount. I'm just looking at the pictures. A huge amount of the East Wing of a building like the White House, which is so, and I'll use the word in its correct sense, iconic. You couldn't do that in this country. I mean, it appears that he could do whatever he wants.
Well, yeah, certainly presidents do have that leverage. I mean, President Roosevelt constructed the East Wing. I mean, keep in mind, this is kind of a office wing. This isn't like when you think of the traditional White House, it's not the actual, like the one with the pillars and all that. It's a side building. President Kennedy, he constructed the Rose Garden. Nixon converted the swimming pool into a briefing room. Gerald Ford installed the outdoor swimming pool in the South Grounds.
They didn't knock a big wing of it down, though, did they?
Well, knocking it down and then with a plan to, of course, replace it with something that looks really beautiful. Keep in mind, this ballroom they're building, it's based on the ballroom at Mar-a-Lago. And Mar-a-Lago was the winter White House when the daughter of this Kellogg's cereal fortune donated it to the government. It was actually property of the U.S. government. They called it the winter White House. They couldn't keep up the upkeep. And just ironically, fate loves irony, it fell into the hands of who else but Donald Trump. And it just so happens that he likes building ballrooms. And they're building a really grand and fantastical ballroom that's in ethos with the White House. And it's going to be used for positive things. Now, obviously, you can have demolition from that, and I guess, you can castigate it as demolition, but, I mean, it's an improvement, obviously, and it certainly does have precedent as far as presidents having that leeway for authority for erecting buildings. Again, the only part that I can find that there might be some controversy would be in the demolition part as far as permitting there goes. But if you shut down the government, I suppose there's nobody there to give the permits.
Well,
so,
this is the problem, of course. You've had the shutdown for a while. But I mean, I'm not being fickle, or I hope I'm not sounding facetious. I don't intend to be. But I mean, in that case, could he not just have the entire White House demolished and replace it with a massive 52-story golden tower? I mean, what limit does he have imposed upon him?
Well, I think it's a good question, and I actually have the answer for you. So we have the sort of historical Monuments Act involving all of the buildings in D.C. and stuff like that as far as non-altering them. However, a few of them are exempt. There's 3 buildings, mainly the Capitol and the White House and this and that, and they're exempt because of remodeling and refurbishment because they're active political buildings. So could a president who decided to spend all of his political capital possibly demolish the White House? Probably not, because I think that would cross over into congressional approval. But as far as the East Wing, which is an office building, there is definitely a precedent. And I think it's important to cite that. It's not the first president to make an improvement. And in this case, Donald Trump and his friends and American corporations have given generously, or you can say selfishly, depending on how you want to look at it, quite a lot of money to build this. It's not to the cost of the taxpayer, and it's to the benefit of the nation at large. This is something that has been talked about for over a century in terms of at least interest or design. But obviously, you can't spend the political capital of building a ballroom because you look around and you say, oh my gosh, you're spending $300 million to build a ballroom while this or that is going on.
Well, let's talk about...
The only person who could possibly do it is Donald Trump and his friends who are privately funding it. Otherwise, it wouldn't ever work. And that's why we've had to wait so long.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, let's talk about the money. So we're assured then that it's not coming from the US taxpayer. It's not coming from government funds. However, he is about to decide exactly how much he is going to get from his own administration for what he considers to be the unfair suing of him for things that he says he's not guilty of. So he's going to allocate £230 million for that raid on Mar-a-Lago, which he's going to pay himself from his own administration. I mean, is that going to pay for it? Or, I mean, how's it going to work?
Well, I suppose there's an interesting thing there. I mean,
it's ridiculous.
Well, just keep in mind, let's say you're suing the BBC, and then in the middle of that, you become president of the BBC for whatever reason. It's a very unusual situation. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen that your greatest adversary who's been going after you, X, Y, and Z, also is the job you're trying to get. So it's a very asymmetrical situation. So I think we need to appreciate that. It's not as though it's Donald Trump paying himself. Donald Trump in 3 years will no longer be a government employee. He'll be, I guess, a retiree from the U.S. government, regardless of the Trump 2028 jokes. So, you know, in that case, I think it's you got to separate the two things. And as well, you do also have the fact that Donald Trump is going to be the largest donor. Obviously, he wants that for his legacy, selfishly, you can say. But also, you're getting $25 million checks from other large companies like Coinbase, which is the cryptocurrency industry that he's championed and advocated, that many of us are very big fans of, and other industrialists, if you want to use that sort of broad spectrum term. So it's not just Donald Trump's money going into it as well, just to be clear. So there's that.
All right, well, listen, Errol, as ever, you know, the twists and turns are intriguing. It fair boggles the mind. Erol Morkoc there, Republican strategist and spokesperson for Republicans Overseas UK. More of your calls on the way between now and